The Big Ten needs no introduction. Over the past decade, they have been up there with the SEC in the argument for who is the top conference in college football. The SEC has always had an edge thanks to Alabama and Georgia dominating, but the winds of change are indeed blowing. After Michigan finished the damn story and won a national championship last year, and the Big Ten had a shotgun wedding with 4 Pac-12 teams to expand the conference to 18 squads, they could very well now be the best conference in all of FBS. But today we're not settling that hot debate. We're just trying to figure out not who will win the Big Ten, but who the fuck is going to survive it. Let's begin. Illinois. You ever heard the old saying, small fish, big ocean? You are a minnow in a sea of sharks. You have some good pieces where you need them on offense with Caden Fagan and Josh McCray at running back. Defense is your Achilles heel, man. You are going to be working on trying to gel together some new faces after a good chunk of your starters left. There are a ton of players that can obviously step up and play, but nobody that was at a similar skill level as the last team. To be honest, you're going to need to pray you have some hidden gems because, unlike in past years, that second game against Kansas is going to be a tough one, and your defense is going to get torched early. Not to mention the rest of the schedule is going to be a fucking nightmare. Reaching 6-6 is possible for you though, so don't abandon all hope just yet. Welcome to Bloomington, Kurt Signetti, also known as where coaches go to die. Indiana is the furthest thing from a football school, and unlike James Madison, doesn't have any sort of legacy to lean on over the past 10 years. You may be a quarterback whisperer, and you brought your entire offensive staff with you from James Madison, but the biggest problem is that your linemen on both sides of the ball have about as much depth as the plot in 50 Shades of Grey. You may be able to stop the revolving door at quarterback with Ohio transfer Curtis Rourke, but you got to keep that fucker alive long enough to do something with him. You haven't had a losing season in 13 years as head coach, but even making it to 6-6 is going to be damn near impossible, barring some massive miracle. The only fucking thing keeping you alive still is that goddamn defense of yours. Phil Parker has proven to be probably the best defensive coordinator in college football right now, and he will need to continue to prove it this season. Naturally, having an offense near the bottom of the nation was absolutely going to mean the offensive coordinator being executed by firing squad. The new one, Tim Lester, has a pretty low bar to clear with Cade McNamara finally healthy again at quarterback. We could talk about the lack of depth at wide receiver, the low performance by the offensive line, but god damn it, it can't possibly get worse at this point. Just don't be at the bottom again in points, and I'll call this season a win, regardless of record. Tagovailoa is gone. It's probably the biggest problem you have coming into the season. Your offensive line was reinforced with transfers Aliu Boa from Georgia, Josh Kaltenberger from Purdue, and Alan Herron from the Division II school, Shorter. Roman Hemby is back at running back, and your wide receiver core is stacked with Ty Felton, Caden Prather, Octavian Smith Jr., and Shalik Knotts. Your defense is even solid and stacked with returning veterans. Now, quarterback, who the fuck replaces Talia? Well, it's going to be a few weeks before we know for sure, as it's pretty much a toss-up at the moment. The most likely suspect, in my opinion, would be Billy Edwards Jr., who was the MVP of the Music City Bowl, but he's got competition in the quarterback room with MJ Morris and Cameron Edge. Choose wisely, Maryland. It would be a damn shame for this great foundation you've laid to go to waste. I hope that ring was worth it, because it's time to pay the fuck up. No one has forgotten all the scandal and controversies surrounding the Wolverines last season. To absolutely no one's surprise, Harbaugh got his rings and fucked all the way up as far as he could get. He's now Los Angeles' problem, and Sharon Moore has some massive holes to fill in and fast. Not to mention, he might be tied up in all this mess as well. Nonetheless, you have a 5-man quarterback battle and a questionable offensive line at best that's now gonna be the wall for a run-based attack this year. Personnel on defense is mostly the same, albeit with a hole in the secondary thanks to Rod Moore getting hurt during spring camp. There's also less depth on the edge than you would like to see, but the other position should be able to compensate. While the defense can likely hold back most teams this year, your offense needs to get it going and quick. If not, Texas, Oregon, and even Ohio State will beat the piss out of your maze. Seriously, for being traditionally a smash-mouth football conference, I'm having a hard time finding teams with good linemen on both sides of the ball so far. This is glaringly apparent in Lansing, because good fucking God, Spartans. Aiden Childs is either going to be in the best shape of his life or dead by week 4 because he'll be running for his life all game long. Jonathan Smith may be trying to remake his successful Beaver offense he had back at Oregon State, but this is going to be yet another team that will be happy just to win 6 games. Fucking kill me, damn it. You bastards only got a bowl game last year because you had a better GPA than Mississippi State. The bowl rings you got might as well be fucking ring pops. If you thought you were going to rebound off the undeserved bowl win, I got some bad news for you. Your offense was so bad you had to resort to an FCS transfer to play quarterback. To be fair, Max Brosmer is a good player and would probably thrive in any other offense, but with Minnesota only having one solid wide receiver in Daniel Jackson, he's fucked. The rest of the team has solid players like running back Darius Taylor, linebacker Cody Lindenberg, but they gotta stay healthy. Golden Gophers. With this schedule, they may as well be whack-a-moles. You are still stuck with Matt fucking Rule. You went 5-7 last year, so for Rule, it's approaching bowl or bust territory for the Huskers. You haven't played in the goddamn postseason since 2016, and thank the fucking corn gods your schedule isn't atrocious unlike other schools. You also pulled a fucking coup and nabbed Dylan Raiola from the clutches of Georgia. I don't know how you did that, except I kind of do know how you did that. You paid him big bucks and probably a lifetime supply of corn. Your defense will still be mid at best, so you should expect the high caliber offenses to make mincemeat out of you. I think bowling is possible, but it's still Matt Rule, and regression is kind of his MO at this point. What Northwestern did last season in the face of adversity and controversy was pretty impressive. You scraped together an 8-4 record and got an upset win in the Las Vegas Bowl. In terms of possible outcomes, you did the absolute best you could do. David Braun rightfully earned his place as the full-time head coach, but the honeymoon phase is ending pretty quick. How about bringing in a new offensive coordinator from South Dakota State named Zach Lujan? I'm sure he's no one special. He just led them to back-to-back FCS titles. The skill positions are green as hell, aside from returning wide receivers Bryce Kurtz and AJ Hennig. The defense is mostly returning players, and the defensive line is entirely intact. Your likely starting quarterback is Mike Wright, who has been a college journeyman of sorts playing for Vanderbilt and Mississippi State. He's no Heisman caliber player, but if nothing else, he's a veteran leader that will hopefully know how to use the weapons Northwestern has on hand. Ryan Field may be gone, but out of the rubble, a new era of Northwestern football may be beginning in Chicago. Just don't count on similar success this year. You guys are going to get fucking killed. I genuinely don't know what you want me to say about Ohio State. Top to bottom, every single analyst and media personality has them pegged potentially to win the national championship. Despite losing Marvin Harrison Jr. to the NFL, they are more stocked up with as many weapons as the United States military. The fact that their rival to the north won it all last year and has won 3 straight against them has lit the biggest goddamn fire under their asses. They hit the goddamn portal and got to work. Quinshad Junkins, Will Howard, and probably the biggest coup from the portal, safety Caleb Downs from Alabama. True freshman wide receiver Jeremiah Smith declared for the Buckeyes and is expected to make an immediate impact starting week 1. The defense is about as juiced up as you can make it. Safe to say, the Buckeyes have gone all in this year. The only goddamn person I think that could throw a wrench in this is Chip Kelly, the new offensive coordinator for the Buckeyes. It's no secret the disdain I have for this man. He rode on the foundation built up already at Oregon, added nothing to it, and fucked off for the NFL before becoming a mediocre head coach at UCLA. I guess I'll reserve judgment until we hit the conference schedule, especially when Ohio State visits his own home in Eugene. I alluded to my thoughts on Oregon earlier in my duck roast a few weeks back, but here's the gist. Oregon was really goddamn close to being in the playoffs last year. They had a great team led by Bo Nix, and if it wasn't for Michael Penix and the Washington Huskies, twice, they would have made the damn playoffs. However, this duck team is potentially going to be the most powerful in their long and tortured history. And with them joining the Big Ten, it forces them to play Ohio State in October, and probably one of the most anticipated games of the entire season. Dylan Gabriel has the job of replacing Bo Nix, but unlike most transfer quarterbacks, he has the skills to step right in and pick up where Bo left off. Their offense is a West Coast blitzkrieg of power and skill. 531 yards per game, 44 points per game. Leading the charge in the wide receiver core is Tez Johnson. their reception leader from last year, followed by Trayshawn Holden, Gary Bryant Jr., and Texas A&M transfer Evan Stewart. A strong offensive line should give Gabriel plenty of time to find one of these guys open. Now, as long as your defense has been adjusted to playing in a conference that takes pride in having a smash-mouth power offense that historically has made mincemeat out of your team, you're all set. Wait, you haven't? Can you please get the fuck moving or get out of the damn way? Getting real sick of your shit, Penn State. Everything is fine and dandy, and you look dominant up until you fucking implode against Ohio State and Michigan. I could talk about the fact that Drew Allar should be a better quarterback, that you returned a lot of starters from last season on both sides of the ball, and that James Franklin brought in a new defensive and offensive coordinators to finally break through the next level, but I won't bother. You didn't make the playoffs once in the 4-team era, and now you have zero excuses anymore after the expansion to 12 teams. Time for talk is over for Penn State. Shit or get off the pot. Are you guys the trains, or are you the little bitch tied up on the tracks? Actually, don't answer that honestly. You guys are absolutely fucked. You got quarterback Hudson Card and running back Devin Maccabee, but that's about where it ends for you. There's a lot of work to do despite all the transfers into the program, especially on defense. If you win 6 games, despite getting wrecked by Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Penn State, I'll be amazed. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not the same old Rutgers. They're not the pushover anymore that everybody was beaten up on the last decade. No, they actually had a good season last year and actually won a bowl game. A big reason that this year there are not going to be no pushovers is the defense. Most of the starters are back this year for another go. There was also some transfers to bolster potential holes, including Malcolm Ray from Florida State on the defensive line. On offense, with Wimstack gone, Andy Kalakamanis is coming in from Minnesota to lead what is probably going to be expected to be a ground and pound offense. The biggest star on this team is Kyle Monangai. He is looking to reclaim his spot as the top running back in the Big Ten after rushing for over 1,000 yards last season. What's good for him, though, is the offense won't solely rely on him now, with the wide receiver core getting an upgrade with FCS transfers Dymere Miller and Nassim Brantley. Don't be surprised to see Rutgers on a crusade this season, maybe even shock a heavyweight. For all the grief I give Chip Kelly, he wasn't the worst coach to ever run the Bruins. He was just incredibly mediocre. It's been hard for UCLA to escape the shadow of their maroon cousins next door, but this may be their chance to begin to stand out. The biggest move was turning to the UCLA alumni Deshaun Foster to take over the reins as head coach. He spent the better part of a decade with the program and knows how it works. He also didn't waste time nabbing Eric Bieniemy at offensive coordinator right away to hopefully mold new starting quarterback Ethan Garbers into a stud. With star wideout J. Michael Sturdivant, he should be able to get some experience. But with question marks on defense everywhere, and a schedule including Oregon, Penn State, and LSU, it's going to be a rough ride for them out the gate. Lincoln Riley, you are officially running out of goddamn excuses. I already suspected you were fraudulent when Oklahoma began to have more success than you last year with a lot of your old staff there. Despite having a fucking Heisman at quarterback, you went 8-5, got shellacked against rival UCLA in the home finale. The offense is completely gutted, with only Zachariah Branch returning at wideout and the new starting quarterback duties falling to Miller Moss. For now, UNLV transfer Jaden Mayava was an absolute star last year and will be ready to take his spot at a moment's notice. The defense is about the same, with linebacker Mason Cobb and Bear Alexander at defensive tackle, composing half the total returning starters. In theory, they should be able to compete for a playoff spot based on the talent alone, but it will likely be an away game if they make it at all. Furthermore, one more 5-loss season, and Lincoln should be falling by the sword. You better prove my doubts wrong, Riley. USC has an absolute zero tolerance on mediocrity. I feel so bad for you bastards. Truly, I do. There are zero returning players on offense from last season. Michael Penix, Romo Dunze, an absolute gem in offensive line, even your head coach are all gone. Only 2 players on defense are back in total. You now understand why the Huskies are the first team in 73 years to be unranked in the preseason polls after finishing number 2 in the nation. You are completely fucked, but it's the epilogue of a great story you had last year. You have a good new coach in Jed Fish and some great young talent coming in to rebuild. The schedule is also somewhat forgiving, despite the tough games against Oregon, Michigan, and Penn State. This will be a year of growth, but 8 wins should be doable. The sputtering, stuttering Badgers could not pass worth a damn last season after going to an air raid style offense. This experiment of an offense will not be generaled in all likelihood by Miami transfer quarterback Tyler Van Dyke, who has some experience in this kind of an offense. Bryson Green and Will Pauling will give him a solid options in wide receiver. Defense will need some time to gel after a linebacker overhaul by adding in Leon Lowry and John Pius, but the defensive line is very thin in depth. An early test at home against Alabama will either be the breakout game for the new Badgers or a fucking funeral. Now, before we go to predictions, let's rewind back a moment because I kind of fucked up. Yeah, I forgot to include Southern Miss in my Sunbelt video, so I'm including them here. In all fairness, forgive me for not including them because they're just going to be like ULM at the bottom of the FBS barrel. The defensive line was about the worst goddamn thing on a football field last season, giving up almost 7 yards per game and a total of 51 touchdowns. Holy fucking Christ. On offense, you nabbed Florida State transfer Tate Rodemaker at quarterback, which by all accounts will mean a drastic improvement in offensive production. With Rodriguez Clark coming in as running back from Memphis, you should be able to improve overall. Golden Eagles will be improved, but if you think it'll be enough to make a bowl game, you are sorely mistaken. Anyways, let's go back to the Big Ten. In all honesty, it's going to be Ohio State and Oregon in the title game. It may be my bias, but I feel like the Buckeyes are also a more complete team than the Ducks overall, meaning that they will get the win, the trophy, and a first-round bye in the college football playoff. Oh wait,